right, so fame. It's this quirky thing, right? Everyone wants it, but even after death, it's like a whole other ball game.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We're gonna dive into this top 10 list.
Okay.
It's from the top tens, and it's famous people that died.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see what it tells us about who we remember
And why? Right.
and why.
Yeah.
Like why those people.
It really is fascinating how some people, even long after they're gone, they still kind of spark conversation and inspire us.
Totally. And these lists, they're totally subjective, right?
Yeah.
You go in the comment section, it is a war zone.
Absolutely.
But that's what makes it fun. It's like this little window into how we remember things as a culture. So at the
Yeah.
top, we got like a power trio here. Michael Jackson, Neil Armstrong, Elvis Presley.
Yeah. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
Ye-
Yeah, Michael Jackson, the king of pop. I mean, his music really did reach, like, the entire world.
Global. Yeah.
And then you have Neil Armstrong making that one small step and giant leap for mankind. One of the commenters even said, I think it was that he thinks Armstrong is going to be the only one that people remember in 10,000 years. What does that say about, one single huge achievement? And then there's Elvis. Revolutionized music. There's no denying it. Left a mark on our culture.
It's funny, like Elvis's music and let's be honest, the hip movements
Oh, yeah.
were considered scandalous back in the day.
Right.
And now it's just iconic. It's amazing how that happens over time. But what's really cool about this list is that it's not just musicians. It's a bunch of different fields.
Mm-hmm.
Musicians, actors, political leaders, scientists, even religious figures.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every field has its own path to fame, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You've got scientists like pushing the boundaries of what we know. Like you got Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking.
Huge names.
Yeah. Theoretical physics, cosmology. And we're still using their work to figure out the universe today.
It's wild.
Yeah. And then you've got, artists touching our hearts and leaders, shaping history. What makes one path to fame last longer than another? I want you to think about that as we go through this.
That's a good question. Okay, so you got all these different paths.
Yeah.
What about music specifically? Because you got these classical giants, right? Mozart. Dude was composing masterpieces, centuries ago, and people are still listening today.
It's true.
And then you got somebody like Prince, who is pushing the boundaries of pop, funk, left his own, totally unique stamp on music history.
Yeah.
What makes a musical legacy stick around, Is it just pure genius, or is it the impact they had, or is it just luck and good timing?
I mean, it's probably a mix, right?
Yeah.
Mozart's, no denying his genius, but his music also became part of the fabric of European culture.
Right, yeah.
And Prince, he was a visionary, blended genres, pushed boundaries. That definitely contributed to the impact that he had.
That's true. Yeah. And it's not all just artistic achievements either, right? When we look at the world of politics and activism, you got figures like Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, Harriet Tubman.
Right.
All these different parts of American history and social change.
Yeah.
And their legacies are tied to these huge moments,
Mm-hmm. Their impact goes way beyond just, political things that they accomplish. They represent values and ideals that still inspire people today, all over the world. Think about Martin Luther King Jr., how dedicated he was to social justice and equality. His courage and leadership during the civil rights movement, it still resonates.
Yeah.
It reminds us that, that fight for a more just world is still going on.
Absolutely. So the source also has this, these sections called the newcomers and the contenders.
Okay.
Which is interesting because it's like fame. It's not a fixed thing, right?
Yeah.
It's always shifting.
Yeah.
New people become famous, and then people who we thought were icons kind of fade away.
It's so true. Look at Whitney Houston, Marilyn Monroe, right? Pop culture icons. We're still captivated by their stories, their images, and it's been decades.
And then you got Avicii, the Swedish DJ.
Yeah.
And Stan Lee, the brain behind Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm.
They both got super famous in their own fields and shaped entertainment for millions of people.
For sure.
I gotta admit, when I saw John Lennon was ranked higher than Jesus on this list, I was like, okay.
Interesting.
But somebody actually commented and said that Lennon was more famous than Jesus.
Wow. Well, that's the thing about these subjective lists.
Yeah.
They get people talking, they get people passionate, and it really highlights how differently we all see fame. And then, of course, putting Jesus on the list at all.
Oh, yeah?
Started this whole debate in the
This
comments
logical throwdown.
about, the nature of faith and fame and, all that.
I mean, it really shows you that, like, everybody's got a different idea about fame.
Yeah, yeah.
What's huge for one person might not even be on the radar for somebody else.
Exactly. It brings up these really interesting questions, right? About how, like, what we value as a culture and our own experiences shape how we all remember things.
Yeah.
Like, whose stories get told and who gets to be remembered.
Yeah.
These are big questions we're always kind of wrestling with, right?
Totally. This whole list really got me thinking about, like, what are those qualities, those achievements that really last? What makes some names stick around for centuries while others just fade away?
Right.
Is it just raw talent? Is it the impact they had? Or is it maybe just a little bit of luck and good timing?
I mean, it's probably a mix of all of that, right? Sometimes it's about, pushing boundaries like Elvis did with his music and his whole performance style, or like achieving something amazing like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
Literally stepping into a whole new world.
Right. Imagine being alive back then and watching that on TV. A human being walking on the moon.
It's mind-blowing.
It totally changed what people thought was possible.
Yeah. But then you get someone like Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
His fame isn't just about what he did, but like what he stood for.
Yeah. His dedication to social justice.
During the Civil Rights Movement.
During the Civil Rights Movement. People are still inspired by that today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not just about what you do, but like what you represent.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the values, how you impact other people. Sometimes it's about like embodying a moment or an ideal, you know, like Marilyn Monroe or James Dean.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Their images became like symbols of a whole era.
Right. And speaking of cultural moments, this list got me thinking about like how fleeting fame can be. We got all these figures from the past. What are the people who are like shaping our worlds right now?
Right, right.
Will they be remembered in the same way?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right.
Like, it's almost impossible to say for sure whose legacy will last.
Yeah.
Look at the newcomers section.
Right.
Avicii, for example, he died so young.
Yeah, it was tragic.
But he had such a huge impact on electronic music. Will his music still be around for future generations?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Only time will tell.
Right.
And Stan Lee, I mean, he basically reinvented comic books.
Yeah.
Superhero stories. And now his creations are like this global phenomenon. It's hard to imagine a world without Spider-Man or like the Avengers,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. These figures that, relatively recently had such a huge impact makes you wonder, like, who else might end up on this list?
Right.
Like, who are the people, the rising stars, the ones changing the game right now?
That's what I love about these top 10 lists,
Yeah.
Feel like a snapshot in time.
Right.
But the conversation about fame never really ends.
No, it's true.
It keeps going.
Yeah. It's constantly changing as new people come up and our culture changes.
Absolutely. And it's not even just about who's at the top of the list. It's about like what stories we choose to remember, whose legacies we want to celebrate, and what that says about us as a culture.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So as we're wrapping up our deep dive into, fame after death,
Okay.
I want to throw this out to you, the listener. What do you think makes someone's fame last?
Yeah, what qualities or achievements? Who are the people, maybe not even on this list, who you think deserve to be remembered? Whose stories really speak to you?
Yeah, it's something to think about. Yeah, it's like we all have this this mental hall of fame in our heads.
Right.
And what we put in there says a lot about what we care about,
Yeah.
what we want to be like, maybe even what we're afraid of.
It's true. It's like we remember the people who, blazed a trail,
Yeah,
the heroes, the people who, broke the mold, challenged the way things were.
the icons.
Yeah, they become these larger than life figures.
Totally.
Almost like mythical in a way.
It is kind of a myth, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy to forget that these were like real people with, their own baggage and their own struggles, just like us.
Absolutely. And this list really shows that, fame, even after death, it's got so many layers to it. And it's so subjective.
It really is. I mean, it's like a reflection of our history, but it's also constantly changing,
Yeah.
Like, who knows? Maybe someday the people we think of as icons today
Yeah.
will be seen totally differently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about how, like, even just in the past few years, how we see certain historical figures has changed.
Oh, yeah.
New information comes out, our values change, and suddenly the whole story's different.
Yeah, the narrative shifts.
Exactly.
So maybe the takeaway here is that the conversation about fame, it never really ends.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's like a journey, We're always learning new stuff about the past and seeing it in a new light.
And maybe the most important thing is to, like, really engage with it.
Yeah.
And think about the stories that stick with us and why.
Yeah, because ultimately those stories, they shape how we see the world, right?
For sure. Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those mysteries of fame.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to discover the next legend.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep the conversation going.